Good morning, everybody, and welcome back to the Celtic Way for today's morning briefing. It is the 3rd of August. My name is Ryan McGinlay, and today I'm joined by Aidan Macdonald. That is his Twitter handle. His name's Aidan Macdonald. Aidan, how are you doing today?
Yeah, I'm really good, Ryan. How are you?
Yeah, I'm really good, thank you. Sorry for just saying your whole name there. I'm so used to doing all the Twitter handles. Thanks to everybody for joining us today. We've got a couple of things to discuss today, but before we do, if I could just direct everybody, as always, to the ticker tape down below. It's 13 hours to go on our latest flash sale, our latest offer, our best one yet. If you subscribe to the Celtic Way website and support top quality journalism covering the club you love for only £12 for 1 year's access, if you visit the website at www.celticway.co.uk/subscribe, then you will get £12 for a year's access of ad-light content. You'll get scouting pieces, big match reactions, instant analysis directly from the games, big interviews, opinion pieces daily, analysis pieces as well. Anything that you could look for with regards to Celtic-minded journalism, then it will be there on the website. So I would urge everybody, if they're interested and they're willing to help us out with regards to these videos as well, if you could subscribe to the website, it helps us continue to do these free videos daily and the videos at the weekend. So if you could get involved in it, would be much appreciated. And we thank everyone that's subscribed so far, both to the website and to the YouTube channel as well. If you subscribe to the YouTube channel, it gives you notifications as to when we go live, and if you click the notification bell, you'll get instant notifications when we do go live, such as morning reactions, after match live reactions, and the pre-recorded videos that we endeavour to do across the weekend. So if you're interested, then please give us a subscribe on YouTube. It really helps us. But I think we should get into today's topics. Later on, we're going to talk about Aidan's predictions for the 23-24 seasons, as he kindly did with me the other day. I managed to take the centre stage, so it's time for Aidan to get the centre stage in that regard. But before that, I just wanted to talk about a player that's been getting a lot of hype on social media, you could say, from the Celtic supporters. Seems like a very exciting young player, and that's the shape of Odin, in the shape of Odin Thiago Holm. He signed in the summer. He was Brendan Rodgers' first signing from Vålerenga. I think it was just over 2 million Celtic paid to sign him up and get his services for the club. A midfielder he's very versatile. He can play in any of the central positions in the midfield. I think he's been in and out of the team so far in terms of his sub appearances, but I think that 45 minutes against Athletic Club were a real eye opener into just how good a player he looks like he can be, even at the age of 20 years old. Just to start off, Aidan, I just want to give the floor to you. Basically, what has your impression has been of Odin Thiago Holm been so far?
One word, Ryan: baller. Absolute baller. No, it looks really exciting. I know we obviously broke it down on the reaction to the Athletic Club game, and we also discussed it a bit yesterday. I know you have also provided as part of yesterday's newsletter, which went active on the website today, kind of reviewing each other, as you call them, the newbies' Parkhead debuts, and he came across really well in that game. Excellent passing, very versatile in the middle of the park. It looks like somebody could come in and challenge for a place in that midfield, which is probably not that. We probably thought that was pretty much set for this season, really, as long as Hatate and O'Reilly stayed. Probably thought it was kind of set with McGregor, Hatate, and then a bit further forward O'Reilly. Okay, maybe the two kind of wing positions are up for debate who'll start on each game, but if you kind of just take that as a free, you kind of didn't feel like that was going to be getting broken up unless it was an injury or a player was to move on. But Odin Thiago Holm's been really exciting in his sort of brief appearances so far, and I think he's kind of became, as I'll probably go on when I come to discussing my predictions, but I think he's kind of became one of the sort of standouts really from the transfers that have came into the club so far, and a lot of people online, and I'll include myself in that, are very excited to see how he gets on.
Yeah, I think he fits the profile of a player that Celtic fans could really get behind and really look forward to watching game by game. 20 years old, he's just making his first baby steps into the professional game, but he has played a lot of football. That's the good thing. He is 20 years old, but he's a young 20-year-old, or an older 20-year-old. A young 20-year-old, of course, he's young, but you know what I mean with regards to an older 20-year-old. He's played nearly 100 senior appearances for Vålerenga. That's the sort of numbers that Celtic's youth players could only dream of, it seems, at this moment in time. I think it just shows you the developing system over in Norway as well, where they're not scared to throw in their young players and make them first team players in the process. Do you think that's maybe a model that Celtic could use going forward, instead of sheltering players? If they are good enough, then play them in games? I know there's a lot of every game that Celtic play is a big game, so there's an element of risk with bringing in a young player. But do you think there should be more risks taken with regard to young players?
Yes, in a way. They've obviously got to be good enough, and it's probably a separate discussion. We can go into the Celtic Academy and why they've maybe not been producing that many players since. I guess really the last one's Kieran Tierney, because as much as Cal McGregor's sort of the standout, he'd already made his debut before Tierney. So he's probably really the last one that springs to mind. Obviously, guys like Stephen Welsh have had significant enough minutes, but I don't think any of us would kind of say that he's made an amazing impact. I'm not trying to have a go at him, but he's been in and out, he's had injuries, etc. But yeah, I think it is something you can learn from it to an extent, Ryan. Obviously, it's maybe a bit different at Vålerenga, and that there's maybe not the expectation to win every single game that there is at Celtic. And I just don't know if I could see us ever being at the case where you would do an Ajax type thing, when you just kind of forgo the league for a couple of seasons so you can sort of put like 7, 8, 9 young players in. That's never really going to happen, is it? Because it's important Celtic win the league and try to win every game. I think, yeah, they maybe could do with giving some more youngsters opportunities, but obviously the managers have got to think they're good enough. Rocco Vata, Ben Summers, etc. are two promising prospects that maybe we'll see a wee bit more of this season if they don't go out on loan to maybe the club that Celtic have the kind of reported partnership with in Austria or elsewhere. If they do stay, it'd be good to see them. Yeah, that's the name I always forget. Whether maybe they do stay or they move on to go out on loan, but those are probably the two promising prospects right now. I think you can take aspects from how teams like Vålerenga deal with their youth academy, but I don't know if you would be able to sort of fully replicate that just because of the circumstances I've explained, in terms of at the moment you're wanting to win the league as you do every season, but there's obviously the carrot of automatic Champions League qualification at the end of that for at least next season, I believe, as well. So you don't really want to be forgoing that at the moment because of the investment that brings in, and that's why it would be too risky, I think, to blood in too many youngsters at the one time. But well, ideally, every season, there's a couple that are coming in and playing, 10, 20 games or whatever, and developing, and then over the course of a couple of years, they then become sort of mainstays in the team. But like I say, that's not really happened since Kieran Tierney, before that, Cal McGregor, before that, James Forrest. There's been players here and there, such as Stephen Welsh. But yeah, I think the whole youth academy thing does need looked at, Ryan, overall. Probably can include the B team aspect in that as well, and whether or not that needs overhauled. But yeah, look, these clubs, what they do is great, and I think what excites people about Holm, and I'm going to guess that's probably why you were saying he was kind of older 20-year-old, is he had the chance to go and play for Juventus's sort of elite academy when he was 15 or 16. He turned that down to play first team football, and he's also had a couple of kind of major injuries, but he still managed to clock in over 100 professional appearances before he's 21, which is ideal. You look at somebody like Mikey Johnson compared to that, or even some players that are a bit older that maybe arrive at Celtic when they're 25, 26 and they've only played like 120, 130 games. So the fact he's clocked in significant first team minutes is ideal, and that was something Stuart Ross highlighted when we had him scouted about a month or so ago, that he does look ready for first team football. He seems he can make that step up physically as well as mentally. So yeah, it's exciting times, Ryan, when it comes to Odin Thiago Holm.
Yeah, as I was saying the other day, I watched the second half again of the Athletic Club game, just to purely focus on his performance, because I've seen a lot of people online, maybe off the back of one performance, saying this guy's going to be one hell of a player going forward. So I took the 45 minutes to purely just watch him when he was on the ball. Very, very impressed. He's got a good range of passing. He knows what duels to go into. He's got a good tackle as well. He's mobile. I think he's got everything in his locker to be a really good Celtic player. I think, again, it shows that the model does work if you bring in these players for 2-3 million. This guy's got first team experience. He's made nearly 100 appearances in senior football. I know you can't always take that as a good barometer, because look at Rio Hatate, he'd only made a few. And then he came in and was arguably our best midfielder. That's somebody that Odin Holm will be competing with down the line, which is good. Competition is always good, especially in the midfield. You need numbers and people that can rotate into the team. But yeah, Odin Holm looks like a really, really exciting young player, 20 years old. He's only going to get better as well, which is really, really exciting. I don't know about you. Was there any players that he sort of reminded you of? I don't want to bring you too much into like comparisons or make early comparisons after he's played 3 or 4 games. But was there any players just in terms of maybe former Celtic players or current Celtic players, or even players out with Celtic that he reminded you of in that 40 minutes, 45 minutes?
There was a couple of kind of maybe superstars that it reminded me of, Ryan, but I'll avoid any of those particular comparisons.
You just want to say Odegaard because I was wanting to say it as
Well,
well.
yeah, that's the immediate one that springs to mind. Given obviously, as you pointed out recently, at one point they were both being touted as kind of on equal footing in terms of the next top prospects from Norway. Odegaard obviously made that move quite early, not long after Ronny Deila gave him his debut. He made that move to Real Madrid, whereas Holm decided to stay in Norway to sort of develop over the last kind of 3-4 seasons. But yeah, that's the obvious one that kind of probably jumps out to most people that are watching. I think actually in times of Celtic players, I actually did see a wee bit of Rio Hatate about his game, but I also think he's maybe a wee bit more defensive minded when he needs to be. Now, Celtic are probably kind of set in this double pivot is going to be Hatate and McGregor. If there does become a scenario where Rodgers ever tweaks it so you go back to maybe just like one sort of number 6, then we have 2 8s. In that brief 45 minutes, at times Holm was playing a wee bit further back. Obviously, you've seen some of his attacking exploits as well, but I thought it was kind of interesting that he could play a wee bit more defensive as well. I wasn't really expecting that. I was kind of thinking he'd be more kind of up top leading the attack at times. So I think defensively, he probably, attacking wise, I should say, I could see kind of aspects of Rio Hatate in his game, but defensive wise, I think he had some of the sort of control and discipline that you seen McGregor in the last couple of seasons in that number 6 role, which is also encouraging if you're comparing a new signing to those 2 players because they're arguably the best players on the team. But yeah, I think it looks like he could kind of play a variety of roles in the midfield, Ryan, which is what we had scouted, but I just didn't quite expect him to look as calm sort of defensively. Not that he was getting put under that much pressure in the second half, I should clarify, because I think Celtic were kind of pretty much dominated that kind of second 45 minutes outside a couple of chances that Athletic Club had. But yeah, he looks like he could kind of fill a variety of roles, which across the season, if Celtic do have a European run, which I know we'll come on to discuss in my predictions shortly, then you're going to have to use a lot of players because you could be playing 50 games plus. It's a lot of games. There's already a lot of guys in that team over the last couple of years that have played a lot of football that are going to probably have to have their minutes managed a wee bit more to avoid injuries. So I think it's positive they can fulfil a variety of roles in the midfield.
Yeah, I would agree with everything you're saying there. I think it's also good to have a hybrid, a player that can do both the attacking and the defensive, because injuries do happen throughout the season. There is there's no doubt that he will be around this whole season and next season. You would presume. You don't want to wish him away too soon, but at the same time, he is going to be here for his development for the next, I would say, 3-4 years at least. So he's going to be there to go into positions when players are maybe injured, or if somebody was to leave the club. You're hoping that isn't the case before the end of the transfer window. Now you know that Odin Holm is ready for that first team place if it becomes available. And that can only be good for the team. Having a young 20-year-old coming into the team that's mobile on the ball, that's measured in his tackling, I think that can only bode well for the future. And it's another asset in the team that Celtic could potentially make a profit on down the line. Yeah, I'm really, really excited to see how his career develops. Like we've said, it was only in a bounce game. It was only a pre-season game. The real stuff that starts on Saturday, but early impressions do look good for this player, and it's a player that was really highly rated from the Norwegian expert that I spoke to and Norwegians that were talking about the deal. They rated the deal when it came out, and you're starting to see now why Celtic were in such a rush to get him through the door so early on in the transfer window. Even the way that I think it was basically finalised before Brendan Rodgers came back to the club. It was a legacy signing, but now I think Mark Lawwell, that's his department now, and he'll work with Brendan Rodgers to find the best young players. And good players, you can't get enough good players at the end of the day. And these players will come in and they'll make an impact when they're called upon. I just think that I think that he's a really exciting young player, and I'm looking forward to seeing more of him. Was there anything else that you wanted to touch upon with regard to Odin Holm before we move on to your big moment in the spotlight, Aidan?
I'm sure everybody's looking forward to that. Before we go on, I think just that it was clear, probably from when you were speaking to the Norwegian football expert Ryan, and reports at the time, that he probably would have moved on from Norway a couple of years ago if it wasn't for the injuries he'd suffered. Maybe Celtic would have missed out if they weren't going to take the plunge a bit earlier. But the fact that he has had a few kind of knocks so far in his career has meant that he stayed in Norway a wee bit longer, and that's then allowed Celtic to sort of swoop in at this stage and get him. But yeah, no, all the signs really look positive, and we do need to clarify it was a friendly. It was only 45 minutes. Don't let it get overhyped and too excited, because it can be easy to do that. But I think going ahead for the campaign, it'll be interesting to see how many minutes he gets. Ryan, I don't think I would be expecting him to start against County on Saturday. I mean, we won't go too much into our predicted lineups, because I know we'll have them on the site tomorrow night and as part of tomorrow's newsletter. But you'd imagine it will be probably McGregor, Hatate, and then sort of O'Reilly in the number 10 role. But at home, hopefully he'll get on and get some minutes, particularly if the game's going well in the second half. And I know I'd mentioned the other day about that League Cup game away to Kelly might be one that gets targeted for O potentially getting a start, depending how Rodgers is feeling going into it. If the first two games have went well, maybe home could also be put in the category for that. It'll be interesting to see. But yeah, really excited to see how he gets on, Ryan. And at the moment, he's kind of looks like one of the standouts in terms of the signs.
Yeah, before I advertise the website again, I'm just going to bring up this one comment. David Ferguson asked, seriously, Ryan, who you dropping for Odin Holm? I'm not dropping anybody for Holm at the moment, because I would say at the moment at least Odin Holm will be on the bench to start the season, but it's up to Holm himself to make use of the opportunities that he does get. He might even get a start in the League Cup against Kilmarnock if there is a bit of rotation in the team. That being said, I don't want too much rotation, because you want to get through to the next round, but there's 3 spots in the midfield that are up for grabs. It's maybe less so with regard to Cal McGregor. Cal McGregor will play most games, but I do think that Celtic, and this is something that Alan Morrison wrote about a couple of weeks ago, you do need to start managing Cal McGregor's games before he risks getting seriously burned out towards the end of his career. We've seen that to the detriment of Scott Brown in his final season at the club, that he just played too many games, and the after effects were shown, and they were glaringly obvious. Wasn't taken away from Scott Brown as a player, tremendous player for Celtic, a legend for Celtic, but he'd run out of legs by the end of the season, and you just don't want the same to be happening to Cal McGregor. It's never good to be boasting about a player playing 60 games a season. That's just too much. For some players, that can be 2 seasons, 60 games. So games should be managed, and if Odin Holm can take the weight off of Cal McGregor's shoulders, even for lesser games, maybe at home, maybe against your traditional bottom 6 clubs, or clubs that are maybe just being promoted or are fighting relegation. These are the games that you could play Odin Holm in, get him that game time, and then, if he's good enough, then you can't drop him, and you see where you go from there. But right now, as it stands, I think the midfield will be McGregor, Hatate and O'Reilly, just the same as it was last season. I still think that's Celtic's strongest midfield 3 if they don't bring anybody else in. Be interesting to see if that does change in the next couple of weeks. I'm not too sure. I think Celtic are probably done with regards to their midfield recruitment, but still a strong team. That's a team that that midfield won a treble last season, so that's not to be sniffed at. But yeah, I think it's a great opportunity. It's a great learning experience for Holm, and he's going to learn under some really good midfield players, and the players that he's going to be competing against eventually. Just before we get on to talking about your predictions for the season, if I could just direct everybody once again to the bottom of the screen on the ticker tape. If you subscribe to the Celtic Way website, you'll be supporting top quality journalism covering the club you love for only £12 for 1 year's access. As we said at the start of the video, that's only got 13 hours left on this flash sale. It's our best offer yet. You'll get £12 for 1 year's access. That equates to £1 a month, and you'll be sorted until the start of next season, basically. So you'll be fully covered with all your Celtic-minded journalism. It's all in the one place. It's all ad light, so you'll be getting a minimal amount of ads, which is always good, especially when you're working through a MacBook or a mobile phone. So that's an extra plus. If you visit www.celticway.co.uk/subscribe and get involved, then we would really appreciate it. It helps us in everything that we do. So, Aidan, I'm going to give you the floor now to talk about your predictions for this season. You know, you did it with me the other day, so I thought it was only fair for me to return the favour and give you this time in the spotlight. So, as we were doing the same sort of topics that I did the other day with regards to the nominations and the categories that were selected. So, first of all, Aidan, for Player of the Season, I think you were copying me with this one, I've got to be honest, but you've went for the Magic Man in the middle, the Magic Japanese player Ryo Hatate. I'm just looking at some of the points that you've made with regards to the midfielder just now. You were saying that it was a difficult one with the fact that the midfield is always quite congested and full of talented individuals. You also make the point that he would have been a strong contender for last season and that his numbers are really good as well. And you're talking about the double pivot. So Ryo Hatate, player of the season, I'll give you the floor. What else do you want to say with regards to probably my favourite player in this Celtic team? So I'll let you take the floor in this one.
Yeah, he's just phenomenal, isn't he? I know he might have struggled a wee bit the other night against the Athletic Club, scored a really good goal. Probably some of his passing could have been a wee bit better, which is maybe a bit of an understatement. But yeah, I think Hatate's absolutely phenomenal. This is obviously going on the assumption that Celtic will be able to keep him. The transfer speculation seems to have dried up for now anyway on Hatate, so ideally he'll still be here. 3 years left on his deal, one of the best players at the club, probably the best midfielder in the country, maybe between him and Cal McGregor. It's probably a separate debate, Ryan. But yeah, I think Hatate would have been, as I said, a strong contender for Player of the Year last year if it wasn't for the kind of maybe his momentum getting disrupted a wee bit by the World Cup break and then injuries after that kind of meant he still played, I think it was about 44, 45 games, but he just didn't play probably pretty much every game, which he would have, you'd imagine, if he was fully fit. So that was probably the only reason that he didn't get Player of the Year, in my opinion, for at least Celtic's own awards last season. I think Kyogo, his goals, getting goals in the League Cup final against Rangers and that, probably in the sort of goals in those derbies, maybe just sealed it for him. And look, nobody would dispute that Kyogo was phenomenal last season as well. So I think he was a deserved winner in the end. But for this campaign upcoming, I think Hatate's going to go to the next level, Ryan. Hopefully he himself's discussed how he's had 6 games in the Champions League now. He feels he can compete even more at that level. And I think you've seen kind of in Spurs last year that he was really, really good. Obviously, everybody remembers that pass against Real Madrid, which is all right. The result wasn't great, but still one of the most satisfying things I've probably seen for a while. And UEFA were keen to share that on their social media regularly at one point. But yeah, Hatate has been a brilliant signing for Celtic, and I think he's going to take it to the next level. Maybe this will be his last season. I don't know, but if it is, then in my opinion, I'm convinced he's going to go out with a bang.
I've got to be honest, I've resigned myself to the fact that this will be Ryo Hatate's last season. I think you look at all the different variables and factors. He's 25 years old. He'll be wanting that next step. He'll be seeing how well his mate Matoma's doing down south. He'll be wanting a bit of that, a slice of that pie as well. So, yeah, I think you've just got to enjoy a player like Hatate while he's here. And who's to say that, I mean, he'll be one of the first choice midfielders, but there'll be players pushing him close. You'd hope that players like Odin Holm, obviously we've spoken about him. I must have said his name about 20 times so far in this briefing. And then Kwon as well. I know he didn't have the greatest home debut, but it's still early days and you're hoping that he can improve and stake a claim for the first team as well. Just going on to the next nomination or the next category, your nomination for Young Player of the Season was Liel Abada. Now I'm going to not read too much out because I want to give you some scope to actually talk about the player. I realised that with the first point, I was saying everything that you've said, and then you don't have anything else to talk about. But Liel Abada, a young winger, still only 21 years old. It's incredible to say that. Over 100 appearances for Celtic already since his move in 2021 from the Israeli League. In and out of the team last season. He had a better first season, it's got to be said, but the numbers did stay consistent even with lesser game time or less meaningful game time. Liel Abada, he's shown really good stuff in pre-season. I'm excited about him. How excited are you about him?
Yeah, I'm really excited about Abada for this upcoming campaign, Ryan, and I probably didn't think I'd be saying that sort of 6 weeks ago because it looked like he was probably going to be off after the cup final, just the way, he was emotional at full time, and everybody else that kind of seemed sad after that game, like Ange and Jota, they all ended up leaving Celtic, so kind of had a bad earmark to somebody that was going to move on as well. particularly given his limited game time. But no, he seems kind of rejuvenated under Rodgers so far in pre-season, and we know Abada can score. We know he can provide assists. His movement's really good. He's sort of very good at that one-touch finish thing, but he seems to have been proving his winger play so far, whether that's through Rodgers or maybe working more closely with Harry Kewell. I'm not entirely sure, but he seems more keen to take on a man now and sort of fulfil more of his role as a winger in terms of maybe tracking back as well. Not that he was lazy before, of course. I'm not saying that because players weren't allowed to be lazy in a Postecoglou team. They'd be getting
They
kind of
wouldn't
shut
play.
out of it. They would be getting shut out if that was the case. So not that he wasn't doing that in the kind of first spell, but he maybe at times struggled a wee bit with the physicality of the Scottish League. I think other times he thrived on it, but there was maybe some games he would kind of dip in and out of, Ryan. Whereas during pre-season, and understand, once again, it's a small sample size, it's probably a bit like a few things on this list, something that you can come back and revisit when maybe Celtic have played their first 11 fixtures in the league and they've played a couple of Champions League group stage games, etc. You know, you've played against Rangers and you can sort of take a more sort of varied look at things. But in terms of just predictions for now, I would say he's definitely a really strong contender for Young Player of the Year. And I guess the hope is that he's got the ability in terms of goals and assists. So if Rodgers can sort of upgrade his play as a winger overall, then he's going to be even better this season.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things with the Young Player of the Season. It can go up to players that are age 22 as well, but Liel Abada is 21 as we speak, and I think if he does have a good season, then he'll be a shoe-in for that award, especially if he gets double digits and probably goals and assists. I expect a big season ahead from Liel Abada. I'm really looking forward to watching him play, especially under Brendan Rodgers, who does enjoy working with wingers. And he does have an end product as well. Yes, he could work on his crossing, but he knows where the goal is. So it's going to be a real eye opener to see how good Liel Abada does become under Brendan Rodgers. I think it was me that gave Odin Thiago Holm Young Player of the Season. So it's good to get a wee bit of a mixture with regard to the nominees. Going to top goal scorer, that this is a good segue into probably one that won't get too many nominees. I think it will just be the one winner in this. Top goal scorer for next season. You know, we've got plenty to go off of over the last 2 seasons. Kyogo Furuhashi. You say that this is probably the simplest prediction on this list. 34 goals last season. Yeah, I'll let you take the floor, but it seems like pretty much a shoe-in that Kyogo Furuhashi is going to finish where he left off, basically, or start where he left off with regard to goal scoring in the new season.
Yeah, this is probably the least controversial pick on this list, Ryan, to be honest, so I'll keep it short and sweet. Kyogo's obviously the main man going forward. We know O's going to be in there challenging. Maeda's also kind of been featuring in that number 9 role across pre-season at times, but yeah, Kyogo for me, and I think Rodgers is going to be trying to get him kind of create even more chances, basically, for Kyogo, sorry, I should say. And you'll be hoping he can probably beat his record from last year. They probably should have scored more goals, which is not me being critical, but I think if you look back at some of the chances, 34 goals also an amazing turnover, but he probably could add at least another 10 or something like that with some of the chances. And I think Rodgers will be wanting his kind of wingers and his fullbacks to create even more opportunities for Kyogo. We know how good his movement is and how deadly he can be at times, but yeah, he's Kyogo for me again was the only really choice for this award.
Yeah, I would agree with that as well. I think it'll be very surprising if anybody else chooses anyone other than Kyogo for top goal scorer. New 4-year deal for him. He's in the prime of his career. I think he's just going to start where he left off last season and keep on scoring. You're just hoping that shoulder doesn't the shoulder doesn't bother him too much going forward, and he can get through the season relatively injury free, because if he is fit and firing, he'll be scoring goals. That's the guarantee that he brings. He knows where the back of the net is, and I believe that he'll continue to do that going forward. Most assists, another category that you shared the nomination with me with regard to the player that you've chosen, Matt O'Reilly. I would agree with that too. 14 assists last season. Me and you, I think, are both expecting big things from Matt O'Reilly going forward this season. He was our main assist getter last season, but we want more from his in terms of a complete game performance from him. But we know that if he ups his game and can play to the way that Brendan Rodgers wants his attacking midfielders to play, then he's going to have a really good season ahead of him. But most assists, you've given it to Matt O'Reilly.
Yeah, probably similar with Kyogo here. I don't really think there's that much to say that's probably not been discussed before. But yeah, O'Reilly's creative numbers were phenomenal last season. Really, Ryan, given that he did play that kind of 18, 19 games at number 6, where his job was not to be involved in the attack, really, it was to try and protect the defence and get the ball out quickly from the back. I think the fact is, hopefully, McGregor will stay fit, Hatate will stay fit, Holmes in there as well. Those sort of three players may be involved in double pivot at some point or another, kind of swapping in and out, and that will allow O'Reilly to be in this sort of number 10, advanced number 8 role, however you want to describe it. And yeah, I'm thinking that's going to allow him to score more goals, hopefully, but also get a lot more assists. So I would be probably surprised if O'Reilly didn't get a wee double this season, Ryan, just in terms of he's going to be in a more advanced role, and he's looked really sharp in pre-season so far.
Yeah, you've been hanging out with me too much. You're using basketball terms now, a double-double. Take that from Matt O'Reilly over the course of a season. I think if you even get 10 and 10, 10 goals, 10 assists, then that would show a real improvement in his game, even though the assist rate would drop. If you bring the goals up, then those assists will get spread out throughout the team. You'd maybe be hoping for Abada to get double digits in assists as well, maybe Maeda too, or some of the midfielders will get a couple as well. So you want it to be spread out. You don't want all your assists to be coming from the one person. But if Matt O'Reilly could lead the line or lead the way in terms of assists with 10, 11 and still pick up that award that we've given him, then that would be absolutely ideal going forward. We just want a more holistic performance from O'Reilly. If he can even everything out, even all the good parts out of his game, then I think we'll be on to something special. It seems as if he isn't going anywhere. I know there was a lot of talk earlier on in the window about him potentially leaving, but it seemed as if that was all clamped when Brendan Rodgers came through the door. Matt O'Reilly's a smart boy. He knows that Brendan Rodgers will improve his game tenfold, and it's good that he's remaining at the club to see that through and to see that improvement come through in his game. I think that's a really, really smart decision made on his part. Going on to the signing of the season, I don't think we'll need to touch on this one too much, as we spoke about him for what feels like half of the podcast already. But you've given it to Odin Thiago Holm. You've mentioned the fact that Nawrocki's been brought in, Tilio, Yang, and Kwon as well. But he's the highly rated Norwegian's equipped himself well. You talk about the athletic game. Just as a sort of summary to Odin Holm, I know we've spoke about him at length in this podcast already. For signing of the season, you believe he is going to make a big impact on the first team?
Yeah, Ryan, pretty much. I don't want to go over old ground from anywhere, but I think, and there could be some recency bias in this, which there could be for a couple on this list, given that it was kind of written not long after a really good performance in that friendly. But yeah, he's a player that's kind of excited me the most, to be fair, from the 5 signings, even before that game the other night. He was still probably the player I would say, and I appreciate before that Nawrocki hadn't made any appearances at all, but I would say Holm has kind of been the standout for me in terms of the signings. It was probably what sold me on him was a mix of the scout report we had commissioned for him, and then also your interview with the Norwegian football expert, Ryan. That's kind of what sold me on Holm, and I've been bought into his footballing ability ever since. And yeah, I think he'll be the signing of the season, providing obviously he gets an opportunity, and I think he will, for the reasons we described earlier.
Yeah, a very, very exciting young player, and one that we're really looking forward to watching in depth, both analytically and on the pitch next season. Going on to most improved player, you've went for David Turnbull. It was me that went for Liel Abada in this category. In terms of David Turnbull, I see people in the comments were saying that we missed out talking about David Turnbull. We spoke about him at length yesterday on the podcast, and we spoke about how well he did against Athletic Club. But in terms of most improved player, yeah, David Turnbull. He's been in and out of the team recently, in recent years, but it looks as if he's looking to stake a claim in Brendan Rodgers. I know that Brendan Rodgers last night was actually talking about, or the quotes came out last night, that he was talking about David Turnbull and the fact that he liked him as a player. He says he's a clever player. He just needs to keep it going for 90 minutes. And that's maybe a criticism that many Celtic supporters and commentators have had on David Turnbull. Yes, he can come on and maybe change a game when he's a sub, when everybody else is tired. But when when he does get the chance to start games, he's got to impact them more and really run them, because he's got all the technical ability in the world. Everybody knows that. There's the reason why Celtic shelled out over 3 million for his services to Motherwell back in second time round in 2019. There was a whole hassle about getting him the first time around, but yeah, he looks like a player that's been almost sort of reborn under Brendan Rodgers, especially in that last game against Athletic. But you've went from as your most improved player, so what's your opinion on David Turnbull, and how far do you think he can go this season?
Well, firstly, he has still got work to do. I don't think anybody deny that. That's why I've put him under for most improved player. But yeah, I think he can go really far down. And once again, could be a wee bit of recency bias, given that he did play well the other night. But yeah, I don't think he's going to be maybe a sort of first name on the team sheet every single week, but maybe he will get to the stage under Brendan Rodgers that he'll be a regular in the first team. That maybe didn't happen last season. He'll be fighting before Riley for that sort of number 10 type position. It's maybe interesting that when both were on the park the other night, and I appreciate there was a lot of changes in that second half, that Turnbull got the more advanced role and it was O'Reilly that maybe dropped back a wee bit. Don't know if we can read anything into that, or that's just to do with the amount of changes that were made. But yeah, I think Turnbull will be more involved this season, and I think I was saying to you recently, he's one of the best strikers of the ball I've seen at Celtic. I know he could maybe be a bit more explosive in the midfield, and he's got to be a wee bit more dynamic. Sometimes he can be a wee bit slow, and there is areas in his game he's got to improve undoubtedly, but I think from dead balls and that, he's absolutely phenomenal, and if he can make those wee tweaks that hopefully Brendan Rodgers can help him with, then I think we could have a really top player on our hands, because he's got all the natural ability. We've seen that during the first season that he joined, and also for that sort of first 6 months under Ange as well before he got injured. Last season he was kind of out of the frame a wee bit, and he was maybe, I had him in this category of guys that might move on in the summer, but I'm hoping that Celtic can get that contractual situation sorted, even if it is similar to the Stuart Armstrong, when it's just a kind of 2 or 3 year extension he signs, so that you're kind of sorted for the next 18 months or whatever. It would just be good to get a wee bit of clarity on that, because I think Turnbull could be a kind of really exciting player this season.
Yeah, I think it's interesting the fact that, remember when Postecoglou was in charge of the team, if a player didn't sign a new deal with a year left, then they were pretty much out the door and they weren't going to feature in his long-term plans. It seems as if maybe Brendan Rodgers is going for a different sort of tact in terms of maybe he's going to bring him in. He gave him the captain's armband. Now, I'm not sure if that was because he was just the most senior player, but as I made the point yesterday, he could have easily given the armband to Carol Starfelt in defence, or Scott Bain as the goalkeeper. The fact is, well, Scott Bain actually has been there longer at Celtic, so does that maybe mean something else? Is there maybe more to this than meets the eye with regard to giving Turnbull the captaincy? Is it basically like, you can expect more of a leadership role if you sign a new deal? If you sign a new deal and pledge your future, then, maybe, I don't know, I don't want to say give him the vice captaincy, but you'll be one of the more senior members in the team going forward. I think it's a very interesting dynamic and situation for David Turnbull right now. I would love him to break into that team and force himself into that midfield, because then it shows that midfield is healthy and there's no set starters apart from McGregor. I think there's 2 spots that are up for grabs. I think with Hatate's performances in pre-season, there could potentially be a spot there. Matt O'Reilly's been in and out of the team. He was in the second team for the second half against Athletic Club, so I don't know what that means in terms of his rotation, but it'll be interesting to see what midfielders start against Ross County. Not to give any predictions away yet so far, but it's going to be interesting, that midfield, because I think the midfield is the players that played in the second half have definitely given him food for thought in that regard, I would say. But just in terms of the captain's armband, what do you make about that? I know we spoke about it yesterday, but do you have any more thoughts about that? Because he quite easily, Brendan Rodgers could have quite easily given that to Scott Bain, but he didn't.
I think it's always difficult when it's a friendly, Ryan, just to read too much into it. Look, it is interesting, but it's probably something you would have to kind of see as we get into the competitive football. If there's a stage that Cal McGregor's going off and David Turnbull's on the pitch, does he get the armband, or was it maybe just, is it something as basic as he's just wanting to show him that he's part of his plans? I don't know, because he knows he's only got kind of 1 year left on his deal. It could be something like that, or there could be more to it. I don't know, but some will probably just need to keep an eye on. But it was interesting. They seem to be enjoying that role. What Turnbull kind of doesn't seem like the sort of guy it would be an actual captain, but maybe Rodgers thinks he's got some
Agreed.
kind of leadership aspects that we can't see. So yeah, some we'll just have to keep an eye on. But yeah, it was definitely a kind of interesting anecdote from the game now, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Then going on quickly, I feel like we've discussed this at length, so we'll keep this one relatively short. It isn't a nomination, but it's more of like an observation point. What still needs to be done in the transfer market? I think I'm just going to leave it as just a bit of a statement for you there. What does need to be done in the what does need to be completed in the transfer window to make this maybe from an okay transfer window to a great transfer window, Aidan?
Yeah, as you're saying, we'll just kind of go through this quickly because there's been a lot of podcasts on this over the summer. Goalkeeper, just because you need somebody who probably is a better shortstop on what we've got at the club, but also better with the ball at their feet and can also their overall distribution. Joe Hart's been a really good servant to Celtic. I'd be absolutely delighted if he did want to stay as a number 2 behind a new goalkeeper. I don't know if he would want to do that personally, but yeah, the goalkeeper, I think that's probably the position I would have earmarked at the start of the window. Second position, I've said just a winger overall. I know because Jota, kind of, as people were pointing out, and it made in the comments the other day, and it did make me think more about how I was going to describe it. He did play on the right wing or the left wing, so somebody can kind of come in and do that. You can take your pick on what side you think that we probably need more reinforcements in. There is a lot of players there already in the wide positions, even if you do include somebody like Mikey Johnson that's also injured. But I think somebody that can replace Jota, most fans would probably agree that certainly you get a replacement in. Whether it will be Tete, I don't know. There's obviously kind of been speculation, Ryan, as you're shaking your head there, that he's kind of going to be going on to other pastures and not coming to Celtic. So, yeah, hopefully more names will emerge in that department. And the last position I've said, potentially maybe controversial, was left back. Now, I want to sort of clarify, Greg Taylor has been phenomenal for Celtic. He was a player, he should have been anyway, a kind of contender for Player of the Year last season. The way he adapted under Andrew was brilliant, and he showed he's a really, really accomplished footballer. His touch is good, his passing is good, his movement. Picked up plenty of assists as well, scored some cracking goals last season. That one against Livingston at home was probably a contender for goal of the season as well. It was a really, really well taken finish. But I just think for the Champions League, physicality wise, you maybe just need somebody that's a wee bit of a step up. Now, Greg Taylor would be an amazing number 2 left back at Celtic. If anything, maybe too good to be a number 2 in terms of a backup choice in that position. So obviously that become a discussion about what would happen there. But I just think, Greg, we could maybe just do somebody a wee bit more physical at left back. But obviously we need to be able to fulfil all the roles that Greg Taylor can do. You don't just get somebody in that's a bit taller and a bit more bulkier. They need to be able to do every single thing that Greg Taylor can do so well. So yeah, probably with the 3 positions, that's the one that's maybe a lesser priority. The other 2, I think, have got to be must before the end of the transfer window. And if they aren't filled, it probably won't kind of look that good of a window. But yeah, maybe longer term, particularly for the Champions League, somebody in the left back role could be something that the club might need to consider.
Yeah, I don't think we touched upon it. But just quickly, I thought Bernabei had a really good game when he came on. We might have even discussed it in the post match, but Bernabei put in a couple of really good crosses. He got his goal. You know, he looks like a dangerous player going forward. Not really sure about his defensive capabilities or abilities, but going forward, at least he looks like a good weapon to have, and he's got a good cross on him. Just going on to Celtic. It's the next sort of question that was posed to you. How will Celtic do in Europe? You speak about Europe being the benchmark where Rodgers is judged. I think you're quite similar to me in the sense that you would take a third place and then go on an extended run in Europe. But if second place is available, then that would be ideal as well.
Yeah, that's pretty much it, Ryan. To be honest, I would obviously love Celtic to be able to get to the last 16 in the Champions League, but I think it's very much draw dependent. We do kind of tend to get a group of death, really, most seasons. And if that's the case, third place would become the most likely option. And if that should be the minimum, really, the bare minimum. And if that is the case, I would then be hoping Celtic to go on some sort of Europa League run. Don't want to kind of labour the European point too much. We know in the end there was positive signs last season, but look, it was disappointing. They finished bottom of the group. You can't really sugarcoat that. There was at least 2 games in there they should have won, and probably another game they could have got a draw. They didn't do that. So yeah, Celtic need to be better in Europe. Everybody knows. Try to win a knockout tie for the first time since I think 2004 as well would be a good monkey to get off the back. But yeah, things need to be better in Europe, and that is what Rodgers is probably ultimately going to be judged on. Domestic success is brilliant, and hopefully that will continue. Celtic have the budget that they should be able to do well domestically and also be playing games in Europe. So fingers crossed that that will be the case. But yeah, be a minimum for me, Ryan's third place and kind of hopefully winning one knockout tie, maybe even two in the Europa League.
I mean, you even look at the example last season of Club Brugge, who finished first in their group. They'll be on a similar sort of wage structure that we do, or maybe just a wee bit more, because I know they get better fees for players because the Belgian leagues obviously have a higher standard than the Scottish league. But you've got to reach for the stars. If you're not ambitious, then what you playing football for, basically. So you just got to push for these things. Anything can happen in these group stage scenarios. Teams can take points off of each other, and then that can mean a surprise sort of winner of the group or a surprise second place. You've got to be in it to win it at the end of the day, even in the group stage format. So Celtic should just go for it basically and see how they do. Just on to the last point that was put to you. What will Celtic win? I'm not going to give anything away. I'm going to let you just take the floor on this one. How many trophies are Celtic going to win this season, Aidan Macdonald?
So I've probably put, some might say potentially arrogantly, but I've said a treble, Ryan. Just because of the momentum from last year. Obviously, look, Andrew's left, Jota's moved on. Still a good squad there. Hopefully a few additions to them, as we've discussed. A really good manager who's done it all in Scotland in his first spell. 7 out of 7 trophies contested, and also played a vital role in the league that was delivered in the season that he obviously departed in February, and the Cup. So in a way, it was 9 out of 9 really. As much as obviously I know Neil Lennon was then in charge, he did have to see it over the line. He did well doing that, obviously, because it was difficult circumstances. But Rodgers definitely deserves credit for what occurred in that league season and Scottish Cup campaign, as much as he wasn't there at the end of it. So yeah, I'm just kind of confident that will be the case again. I understand there's always potential for this to get clipped up come the end of the campaign if it doesn't work out, but I think Celtic are in a good place, recruitment wise, as long as they hold on to all their main players that are still at the club. Kyogo, we know, will be staying in his contract. Hatate, etc. Somebody like Abada now probably falls into that category. Matt O'Reilly, all these guys have kind of been there and done it over the last couple of years. Some of them are sitting with 5 trophies, which is pretty mental, given that somebody like Hatate's not even been here 2 full years yet. But yeah, I think this club's in a good place to be successful again this season, Ryan. And I know they're going to be competing in Europe at least 6 games, potentially more. But I don't think that should be holding them back from domestic duties, because they've got a good squad, they've got the biggest budget in the country. So it won't be easy to win a treble. Rangers will probably be stronger this season. But I think, yeah, Celtic are kind of well placed to be challenging on all 3 domestic fronts.
Yeah, absolutely. They've got the squad to do so, and the manager to do so as well. You would say of the elite brand, as Brendan Rodgers has been called. Proof is in the pudding. 7 trophies out of 7 in his first spell at the club. You're hoping that he can have more of the same in the second stint of his Celtic managerial career. Just before we finish off today, I realise it's been a bit of a longer show at 48 minutes. But before we finish off, if I could just direct everybody once again to the bottom of the screen at the ticker tape below. If you subscribe to the Celtic Way website, you'll support top quality journalism covering the club you love for only £12 for 1 year's full access. It's only 13 hours to go. It might be down to 12 by the time this recording is going. So it's the final countdown is on, basically. Don't get me singing that song, but the final countdown is definitely on with regard to the flash sale. If you subscribe, you'll get access to all of our articles, all of our features, our opinion pieces, our big match interviews, instant analysis straight from the game, big match verdict from Tony Haggerty. You will get analysis pieces from Duco James and Alan Morrison of the highest quality, and anything else. Basically everything that you could ask for in a Celtic-minded journalism sphere. It's on the Celtic Way website. So if you are interested, and it really does help us if you subscribe. So if you are interested, then please subscribe. £12 gets you a full year's access. It's the best deal that we've done yet. And yeah, that'll be you covered until the start of next season. So you'll be able to keep up to date with everything to do with Celtic with regards to our journalism content. Aidan, thank you very much for joining me today.
Thanks very much, mate. Always a pleasure.
We'll be back tomorrow. It'll be you and a special guest tomorrow, Aidan, to talk more about Celtic. Thanks to everybody in the comments for getting involved as well. We always appreciate it. And we will see you all at the same time tomorrow. Thank you very much and have a good day, everybody. Cheers.